Valin, a Minbari not born of Minbari, was the most significant figure in Minbari history. Appearing mysteriously in the midst of the First Shadow War, aboard a powerful new battle station, he is credited with uniting the fractured Minbari castes and leading them to victory against the Shadows. He is also known as the founder and first leader of both the Grey Council and the Anlashok. Moreover, Valin's actions laid the groundwork for the founding of the Interstellar Alliance a millennium later. History. When Babylon 4 arrived in 1260, Geoffrey Sinclair destroyed the letter he wrote to himself in 1360 to prevent the slim possibility of future information falling into the hands of the Shadows or their allies. He sent a message to the Vorlon Empire, to the two Vorlons he knew well enough in the future, Kosh and Ulkesh. They alone came to the station first. Proving who he was and when he was from without giving too much of the future away, he enlists their help. Using the Triluminary and the Chrysalis device, he then transforms himself into Valin, taking on the appearance of a Minbari. After his transformation, Valin contacts the Minbari. Ever since the death of their leaders and the destruction of their greatest star base, the Minbari fleet had been on the run. Their ships were damaged, scattered, and cut off. They were unable to find a safe port as all other races had been turned against them, and they could not return to Minbar for fear of leading the Shadows back to their homeworld. Receiving a signal, they follow it back to its source, Babylon 4. A boarding party is sent and they are met by Zathras, who takes them to Sinclair. Flanked by the two Vorlons, he introduces himself as Valin and says they have much work ahead of them. Seeing Valin and his station as an answer to their prayers, the Minbari quickly rally around him and adopt the station as their new base. The Minbari were curious where Valin had come from, but were unable to trace his lineage back in any Minbari line and did not press the issue with him, hence he would often be said to be a Minbari not born of Minbari. Valin first attempts to unite the Minbari castes, but they begin to quarrel amongst themselves again, refusing to bend. Valin turns his back on them and creates the Anlashok, a new army that recognizes no caste lines and operates outside of the uncooperative castes, and they in turn call him Entiljar. Valin constructs their base and training compound in the foothills of the northern mountain range on a wide plateau that overlooked the city of Chuzanor. It was said that Valin wanted the rangers to train for battle, where they would also be able to see the sacred city, over the objections of some elements in the warrior caste, who protested that good soldiers couldn't be created in a place of peace. Shamed by Valin's decisive actions, the Minbari elders allow him to reorganize them. He calls forth the Nine, the first Grey Council consisting of 3 from each caste, worker, warrior and religious. Remaining outside the castes, he becomes the first chosen one and leader of the council. Driving out the darkness. Seeking allies, Valin called many races to his cause, gathering them on Minbar where, just outside of the city of Chuzanor, at the peak of Mount Hlaya and accompanied by Kosh and Ulkesh, he gave what would become known as his holy times to come speech. He prophesies the defeat of the Shadows and that they will return in 1,000 years, that the Anlashok will arise and be instrumental in that coming war against their ancient enemy, in which the Minbari would unite with the other half of their soul. Among those to witness the event firsthand was the Taxiache Ramda Zarwin, who became one of Valin's very first non-Minbari followers. The Yolu declined to join Valin's cause, choosing to remain neutral. The Taxiache take it upon themselves to punish them and launch a punitive assault on Par-Arai. When word reaches Valin of this atrocity, he furiously expels the Taxiache from the alliance. At some point, all Minbari records of their existence, save for those aboard the station, are expunged. Slowly the tide of battle turned in their favor and they eventually drive the Shadows out of all of their places and into hiding beneath Zedhardam, where they enter into a form of hibernation. Later life. After the war, Valin recognizes a danger in allowing the Anlashok to remain as such an effective fighting force without an enemy to fight, where the wrong person as their leader could turn a restless and dissatisfied group into an army for conquest and power. Rather than disband the Rangers, as he believed that without the unifying symbol of the Anlashok, the Minbari military might once again become a collection of warring clan factions, and because he knew the Shadows would return again someday, he retasked the Anlashok with a new mission. They were to be a fighting force no more. Instead they were to become sentries and watchers, collecting information quietly on Minbar from returning travelers and friendly sources on other worlds. Keeping alive the traditions of the Anlashok while they kept watch for any sign that the Shadows had returned. In his absence their leader would be known by one of the same titles Valin himself carried, Anlashok Na, or Ranger 1, but would not be Entiljar. Valin eventually finds Catherine Sokai, his marriage to her causing a scandal as she was an alien, so they and their children leave Minbar to escape persecution. Before going to the sea and leaving Minbar for the last time, Valin left behind a series of sealed boxes containing, among other things, letters addressed to himself, Delenn and Marcus Cole, with orders that they be locked away in the council's archives until a specific date, over 900 years hence. He also entrusted the council with the 3 Triluminaries and the Chrysalis device he had received from Epsilon 3, which are kept as the Minbari's most holy relics. Babylon 4 was later taken, in secret, to a place of rest where it became a monument. Its crew never returned and its fate would remain a mystery for over 900 years. Before it leaves though, Valin leaves a final message in the hopes that one day Ivanova, Garibaldi or Delenn might find it and know that he had finally found her. Legacy. After living well over 100 years, Valin's death would remain shrouded in mystery, his body never found, and the Minbari always speak of him having travelled beyond rather than dying, with some believing that he will return to them someday. Members of the Third Fane of Chudomo begin a tradition of setting aside one piece of flan, a recipe Valin himself is credited with creating, before their meals, in the memory of Valin, in the place that is set aside for his return. His descendants would later return to Minbar in secret, with help from some of the Grey Council, and introduced human DNA into the Minbari gene pool. A chronicle of their bloodline and progeny was kept by those members of the Grey Council over the centuries in a sealed record to maintain the myth of their racial purity. But, after 1,000 years and many generations, they eventually lost track of these hybrids and now the number of Valin's descendants cannot be counted. Delenn of Myr would one day be among them. Chuzanor, where Valin had made his home, continues to spoken of as Valin's favourite place on all of Minbar, and support for the Anlashok among the people of Chuzanor was stronger than anywhere else on the planet. Over the following centuries, many records from Valin's time are lost and not even an image of the great leader survives. As a result, all depictions of him are given deliberately ambiguous features. His prophecies and letters guided Delenn and indirectly helped Sheridan during the Second Shadow War. His actions provided the foundation for winning the war, and later for building the Interstellar Alliance. He is therefore also credited for being one of the founders of the Interstellar Alliance.